which we are organizing since last 5 years. And last week we have celebrated our 250th webinar. So this journey of knowledge sharing is continue since 28th April 2020 without any fail. So today's topic is Union Budget 2026 Decoded, India's Economic Operating System for Bharat 2047. Friends, as you are aware that today we want to discuss differently because every year budget program is taking place and our main focus was always there in tax. So the number of tax on which item tax has reduced, which item tax has increased, that was the main focus. But this time the budget is talking about the foundation of India's high flight towards becoming a developed nation by 2047. Welcome, Balbir sir, for this program.
Thank you.
So this is not just another budget of 2026. Is it India's economic operating system which we have focused on today's program? A complete reimagining of how our nation will function, grow and prosperous over the next 21 years. That is very, very important because always budget was for this year to next year. This Union Budget 2026 makes a significant step in India's ongoing journey towards sustainable growth, fiscal stability, and long-term economic transformation. And this is framed against global economic uncertainties and domestic aspiration of Viksit Bharat 2047. The budget places a strong emphasis on capital expenditure, structural reforms, manufacturing competitiveness, financial market deepening, and inclusive development. This webinar aims to critically examine the economic philosophy, priority, and implication of Union Budget 2026, focusing on how fiscal policy, public investment, taxation reforms, and sectoral intervention are expected to influence growth, employment, inflation, and investment sentiment, overall microeconomic stability. So we will discuss all these issues that how India can realistic move towards this become third largest global economy, how the budget 2026 position India on the Bharat 2047 roadmap. Will the budget translate into higher income and purchasing power of Indians? And how the manufacturing sector startup truly will gain this? Or are we designing the right economic foundation of Bharat 2047? So before I invite our guest speaker, and especially Mr. Balbir Pun sir, who is our chief guest today, I just want to introduce all our speakers. We are having a practice of explaining very short introduction, so we can focus more on the current, the specific part. So Mr. Punj is a prominent Indian journalist, columnist, and political activist. He began his media career in 1971 with Motherland, later working on Financial Express 47 to 96, and as the executive editor of Observer of Business and Political 1906 to 2000. Mr. Punj also served as chairman of Indian Institute of Mass Communication and was active in journalist bodies, including as president of Delhi Journalists Association and secretary of National Union of Journalists. As a writer, which is par excellence, he has contributed widely to national and regional newspaper and magazine in Hindi, English, and other language, regularly appearing in opinion page on TV debate. Mr. Punj also served 2 terms of Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha from Uttar Pradesh 2000-2006 and Odisha 2008-2014. Mr. Punj is very close to us, and I know the way he is, his articulation of any topic, anything, whether it's a serious or whether it's a technical, is par excellence, and we will definitely see everyone this particular aspects. So I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, for our program today. Then we have our other speaker, Mr. Anil Khetan, is a chairman and managing director of Sunil Healthcare and past president of PhD Chambers. He is also diversified business experience of 42 years in jute industry, paper industry, pharma industry, copper, steel, and so many things and other international operation. His voice as a PhD Chambers past president and as an industrialist will definitely help us to understand various new aspects of this. I welcome Ketan sir. He is joining shortly. Then we have Mr. Dhanendra Kumar. He is a distinguished Indian civil servant and expert in competition policy. A 1968 batch IAS officer from Haryana cadre, he served as the first chairperson of Competition Commission of the CCI, laying the foundation for India's competition law enforcement. He has also represented India as the executive director in the World Bank, and during his career, he has served various senior positions, including Secretary of Ministry of Defense, Road, Transport, Highways, and Cultural. Post-retirement, has chaired expert committees in competition, regulatory reforms, continue to advise on policy and governance matters. Sir is having a wide experience and international experience, so his word of wisdom will definitely helpful to us to understand the international scenario with this budget. Then we have Mr. G.P. Madan, is a founder and managing partner of Madan Law Office. He is also over 3 decades of experience in corporate law, legal advisory, litigation, governance. He has served as a chairman of NIRC of ICSI. He is a co-chair of ASSOCHAM National Council of M&A, and he is the chair of NCLT and IBC Committee of PSD. I welcome Madan sir, and he is very high knowledge on the IBC matter as well as capital market. I welcome Madan for this program. Then we have very interesting and very knowledgeable person of capital market, Mr. Lalit Dua. He is a managing director and CEO of Rajasthan Global Securities Private Market Limited. He is the biggest SME capital SME stock exchange anchor investor who has invested in various companies, and I think SME market knowledge and the way he has a command over subject is par excellence. And he is expert in the field of stock market, and especially in the stock market, the technical part of merger, amalgamation, open offer, acquisition, delisting, and special situation, arbitrage, investment banking, private equity, portfolio, and capital market. So he is in the stock markets in the last 31 years, and his knowledge and his command over subject and number you will see today when he will speak. Then we have a very intelligent and very silent but a fire in the valley, Mr. Sundaresha Subramaniam. He is a senior business journalist and author with nearly 2 decades of experience in investigation and public interest financial journalism. He is currently executive editor of ET Prime, the Economic Times, where he has led award-winning coverage for corporate governance, regulatory affairs, ESG, energy translation. He is the author of the Dirty Dozen, which chronically India's largest corporate defaulters and challenges of the insolvency regime, and was recognized as FICCI Business Book of the Year 2025. I welcome Sundar for this program, and your knowledge and silent comment will be very useful for all. Then we have Mr. R.K. Agrawal. He's a senior chartered accountant, strategy for dispute resolution expert, and over the 3 decades of professional experience, he specializes in income tax litigation, search, seizure, tax planning, and strategic business advisory for corporate and high net worth individual. He is managing partner of R. Rakesh Raj and Associate. He is a prolific writer and speaker. He has authored leading taxman commentaries and served on key committees of ICI, ICSI, including chairman of NIRC of ICSI. And the interesting part is Mr. R.K. Agrawal, not only this, he has a high interest in Indian economy, and today his knowledge on tax plus Indian economy will reflect this. Then last we have Sri S.B. Goel. He is a senior corporate executive over 3 decades of experience in finance, infrastructure, large-scale industrial development. He is presently CEO of whole-time director of Model Economic Township, a 100% subsidiary of Reliance Industry, where he leads Smart City, Industrial Parks, SEZ Manufacturing and Logistic Project. A seasoned strategic, he has held senior leadership role with Reliance Industry since 98, including chief of major SEZ project. So the today's if you see, we have an industrialist, we have a lawmaker, we have the civil servant, we have a person who from the industry, we have a media person, we have a taxation person, we have the capital market people. So the multiple people, and the topic of decoding for India's operating Indian economic operations system is also very, very important. So with this, I will just give you a change of the concept of this, that this budget is, or how this operating system of Viksit Bharat, that is very, very important, because this is a transformation blueprint for reimagining India's economic future. So 5 trillion economy to 30 trillion economy in 2047, that is the plan. Next. So big picture, if you see India's growth architect is a trust. This budget is trust-based governance, generational certainty. Mean they are not talking about the next year, 2 years, 3 years. They are saying 21 years commitment they are giving, that how we will do. That is one biggest thing. Then Atmanirbhar manufacturing, import dependence to global competitiveness, connectivity revolution by 12 lakh crore infrastructure transformation, and then innovative like youth power meets technology for global leadership. That is another aspects which we have to do. So there are 5 engines. One is the compliance burden to trust-based governance. We have always seen that in law, rigorous imprisonment, this penalty, you have done technical violation and there's a jail. Now it is rigorous to simple they have done, prosecution to resolution, and penalty to immunity by paying fees. That is the focus of this. This is the first engine which we have seen. So the trust dividend will definitely unlocking 5 lakh crore rupees things, because 70% reduction on pending litigation will be there, 5 lakh crore working capital release, significant boost in ease of doing business, and entrepreneurship without fear of prosecution will work. This is first point which is there, which is first engine. Now next is from short-term incentive to generational certainty. So 21 years tax certainty, data center, you are exempted up to 2047. IFCSC 20 years, nuclear power 2035, electronic measure 30 to 31. So this is giving a larger uh, policy stability that is very, very important, which Singapore, Ireland, and Dubai has done. So this is second engine which is there. And next, so with this particular thing, we are definitely opening a new thing. Shivam, next. So third engine is the from import dependence to Atmanirbhar, make in India for, and make, earlier we were saying make in India for India, but now we are saying make in India, make for the world, to replace China one policy. So biopharma Shakti, that is another thing. The semiconductor mission, the rare earth element corridor, that is another aspect. And then high tech manufacturing, which is toys, tools, toys, textile, and the local foundation to national scale up and export readiness and global leadership. That will be the new things, and manufacturing contribute to GDP increase from 70 to 25, and that will create 5 crore jobs in up to next time, and it will reach to the third largest economy. Fourth engine is that is infrastructure gap to connectivity. So 12 lakh crore rupees capital expenditure was 7 high speed rail corridor, dedicated national waterway, dedicated flight corridor, and 2-tier and 3-tier city where they want to give 5,000 crore rupees, and they want to create temple town development, stopping metro migration will also take place. Next is uh, from factor driven to innovation driven economy, like they want to create the AV and animation, wax, gaming, comics in 15,000 school and 500 college. That is one biggest change will come. And the girls hostel, allied health professional. So 10 crore youth become globally employable in next 5 to 10 years. So in digital public infrastructure, they want to create by this Bharat Bistar by AI for farmers, digital knowledge, and the impact will be information democracy will also take place. So these are the five engine which are there. So what they will create innovation ecosystem, new institution they want to do, women empowerment and municipal board bond they want to create. So the basic aim is that how we can increase the per capita income of people from 2000 up to 2030 from 2500 to $5,000, because this is the one of the biggest weakness, and drop the unemployment. Next. Sure, next. So integration, how five engine create one systematic changes. So one is these engine will not work in isolation, they will work closely, and the result will be one factory, because when you start one sector, so one factory create 10,000 direct job, 50,000 indirect job, or 5,000 crore export and 2,000 crore tax revenue, plus multiplier effect across that region. So it is not a sectoral development, this is systematic transformation which is taking place. And the next, the micro outcome of this 2030, 5 years. So GDP from 3.9 trillion to 7 trillion per capita, and income from 2000 to 5,000. And then share of manufacturing has to increase, logistic cost has to down, tax litigation has to reduce. 2035, we want to reach is to 10 trillion, per capita income will go to 7,000. So these are the point. And then 2047, which is the plan for Viksit Bharat, the GDP of 30 trillion, maybe we can become the second largest. Per capita income from 18,000, which is like a developing country. Manufacturing shares 25%, and then universal health, education, net zero achieve, and global leadership in AI, clean energy, and pharma semiconductor. That is the plan which we want to do this. So the political economy, why now? Because 3 decades make 2026 the inflection point where India must seize demographic dividend, because that will window will cross 2040, because today we are the highest population 65%, which is below 35, but we lose in 2040. China one policy, we should take advantage, and technological disruption is taking place, we must do. So budget 2026 declare India's, this is not India's moment, and we cannot miss the bus. So it's not that challenges are not there. We require state coordination, bureaucratic mindset, skill gap has to fulfill, infrastructure execution has to do, revenue stability is there, is required. And how this will work, because political will is there, fiscal discipline, deficit is 4.3, which is lowest in 15 years, technological enabler, digital governance, remove manufacturing bottlenecks, and global tech tailwinds. World needs India to succeed as democratic alternative. Sir, you are mute. Shum, next. So why this budget is different from all other previous budget? Number one, constitutional time horizon. 21 years commitment, not 1 year vision. Operating system transformation, not sectoral changes. Trust, not control, decriminalization, immunity in partnership. Global integration, India for the world, not just for the India. Quantified outcome, specific, measurable, and time-bound targets. This question is no longer can India become Viksit Bharat by 2047. The question is how fast we can get there and how will lead to journey. That is the main aim. So friends, these are the main basic point of the budget I have mentioned in a different way. And today we will hear from industry leaders. We will listen from the investor who will fund the transformation, policy expert who will decide the fine print, and economic thinker who will access the micro ability. But the question is, we will explore today, is the vision realistic or aspirational? Will these incentives genuinely attract investment, or this is just tariff shifting? Can India's institutional execution be execute this ambition? Who wins and who lose in this transformation? What are the unintended consequences? But it is certain, budget 2026 is not incremental, it is transformational. It is not asking how we grow 5.5% faster. It is declaring how do we become 30 trillion developed nation in 2021. And this is India's shot now. And unlike a moonshot, this one has fuel, trajectory, and committed crew. The question is no longer can India become Viksit Bharat in 2047. The question how fast we can get there and who will lead the journey. Let's decode and work together. So friends, this is the just I have given a different context contention of the budget. Now we will listen from our chief guest, Mr. Balbir Punj, for this, that how you think that we will achieve this. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pawanji, and thanks for such a generous introduction. Friends, let me begin with a confession. I'm neither an economist, nor a financial expert, nor a successful businessman, not even a chartered accountant who understands money and numbers in a technical sense. Therefore, I consider it as a great honor to be invited to speak to such a distinguished gathering of individuals who not only create wealth, but also understand its complex dynamics. What I do understand, however, is the country into which I was born and in which I have lived for 77 years. So what I share with you today will not be based on abstract economic theories, but on lived experience and broad understanding of historical economic trends. The fact is, I have read very little economics, formal economics, and what I offer instead are observations drawn from life, from history, as I've experienced and come to understand them. Not very long ago, my friends, India was known as Sone ki Chidiya. And this is not a mere fable or a romantic exaggeration. It is supported by historical economic research. It was propagated for a long time that India has always been steeped into poverty. But then one Paul Bloch, he is an economic historian, he carried one study, Global Economic Growth, 1750 to 1900. And he carried on the research, which said that in 1750, India accounted for roughly 24.5% of global output, while China's share was about 33%. And at that time, when India and China together controlled more than 66% of the global economy, the share of America and Great Britain together was 2%. Now, once this statistics got to known, then there was a disbelief, and they put up another study conducted by a global economist called Angus Madison, and it was done under the auspices of OECD, Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation. And the study was called World Economic History, a Millennial Perspective 2005. Now that showed that India's share in year 1000 was 29% of the global economy, and in 15th century, it was 25%. Marco Polo, who traveled to India in 1288 to 1292, 4 years, he observed that Indian and Chinese merchant vessels were far superior in size, quality to European ships of that era. They were at least 10 times bigger. They had more cargo carrying capacity. Now, from this stage, then comes in the 18th century, the colonization. And colonization not only drained our economy. When the British left, we were virtually paupers who could not make even stitching needle of steel. And they also intellectually bankrupted us. And as a result, we started blaming ourselves for all our economic ills. In fact, people of my generation will remember those difficult years when Indians had to stand in a queue to get a bottle of milk, telephone connection, vanaspati ghee, you name it, for a bag of cement. And there was either black marketing, or you had to stand in a queue, or you needed a recommendation letter from a minister for such basic necessities of life. And when these economists were asked to explain, there was one very famous economist called Professor Raj Krishna. In 1978, he made a very famous, infamous statement, I will say. He said, this is a Hindu rate of growth. So what is this Hindu rate of growth? India is poor because it is Hindu, because it believes in karma, it believes in rebirth. So they blamed our philosophy. And the income tax rate, those days, you'll be shocked, it rose up to 98%. Now, then came the 1991, the Soviet Union collapse. And with the Soviet Union collapsing, that model of so-called model of development, it also collapsed. So under Narasimha Rao leadership and Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, we started on a comparatively freer journey. And the result was, in year 2007, we became a 1 trillion economy after 60 years of independence. In 2007, 60 years after independence, we became a one. But the corruption, the policy paralysis of the UPA 1 and 2 government, it derailed our development journey. And as a result, in 2013, Morgan Stanley classified India among the fragile 5 economies of the world. The others were Brazil, Indonesia, Turkey, and South Africa. This background was necessary to know what was the base from which we have taken off. 2013, we were declared as a fragile economy of the world, and only 5 were done that so. So what is the India position now? 2025-26, the economic survey says, and the world says, that we are the fastest growing economy with 7.4% rate of growth. The real GDP has grown from 13.71 lakh crores in 2013 to 47.89 lakh crores in 2025. Forex reserve have more than doubled to about 700 billion US dollars. Inflation has declined from 9.5% to just 1.3%. India has finalized 8 FTAs covering 37 developed countries. India's export reached a record of $825.3 billion in financial year 25-26. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we were a 1 trillion economy 60 years after independence in 2007. By 2014, in 7 years, we became a 2 trillion economy. By 2021, another 7 years, we took another jump. We became a 3 trillion economy. And by 2025, we became in 4 years, a 4 trillion economy. And next 2 years, we will add another trillion, and we are likely to become a 5 trillion economy in the next 2 years. Per capita income, it crossed $1,000 in 2009, doubled to $2,000 by 2019, and is expected to reach $3,000 by 2026. As per the latest projections quoted by SBI, State Bank of India, India's gross national income per capita will hit $4,000 by 2030. And from there, our journey to become a developed country will begin. And And there is a good possibility that we are on track to overtake Germany and emerge as the third largest economy by 2028. Now we are the fourth largest. Now, after Modi era began, comparatively speaking, at the top, the corruption is zero. But I will not say the same thing about the bureaucracy below. And the entire philosophy of the government is Atmanirbharta, self-reliance, which together have fused the economy with fresh, enduring, and positive energy. Now, India, the world is restructuring supply chains due to geopolitics and overdependence on single countries. Now, the emphasis is to make in India to master in manufacturing. Earlier phase was focus on capacity creation, and next phase is capability building. The budget vision shifts India from assembly economy technology to integrated producer. That's going to be a major change. Now, there are countries controlling critical technologies and complex manufacturing have global bargaining power. And we see how China has been able to stand up to the bullying of Trump because they have that bargaining power because of some critical chemicals and also critical technologies. Now we have to prioritize our technology intensive strategic sectors. Even experimentation leads to failures. The budget philosophy, as I could see, was strategic risk today, economic sovereignty tomorrow. And India's model is already working. Now, electronics production, there is a six-fold increase, and there is a eight-fold increase in export in the last 11 years. Pharmaceuticals, we virtually supply half the vaccine to the world, global demand, and generic medicine leader. Then budget focuses to replicate this success story among more industries. Now, to expand advanced manufacturing, India needs stronger research and development ecosystem, industry academia collaboration, faster technology absorption by firms, robust skilling architecture. The operating system idea here is knowledge plus technology plus skill infrastructure. The focus will have to be on the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Why? Because, and we'll have to move beyond metros. Because lower land and wage costs, better livability, growing infrastructure, large labor pool, budget strategy supports distributed industrialization, not metro congestion. Budget 2026 is not just a fiscal document, it is software architecture for Bharat's economic hardware by 2047. Friends, India has to shift from cost advantage, capability advantage, and from strategic indispensability. Now, there are 5 areas or red flags which we need to focus. One is the judiciary. There are 5 crore cases pending, and that creates problem in dispute resolution. That affects the industry sentiment. States and local governments have to become co-authors of the India's industrial rights. This political rivalry has to go. And from volume, we have to shift to strategic volume. And India's next leap isn't just produce more, but produce strategically indispensable goods and build technological depth, create globally competitive firms. Friends, I was talking about the red flags. Apart from the clogging courts where 5 crore cases are pending, we have a corrupt and inefficient bureaucracy. Of course, there are good officers, honest officers, but as you go down the line, you will find the bureaucracy doesn't facilitate, it acts as a block. Then citizens' capacity, tendency for shortcuts. The government will build up a class, world class highway, and suddenly you will find somebody driving from the wrong side. And the entire, what you can say, the utility of the highway is finished. So I just giving an illustration that how the citizens make it difficult. Then there is a total urban collapse, and this was underlined by the pollution in Delhi and other metros. Now, I wish to conclude. India is not merely growing, it is guiding. It embodies a rare confluence of tradition and modernity, where economy serves not just profit, but public good. There is a self-confident India, one that no longer plays by others' terms, but defines its global identity through its interests and self-respect. India is still the best. And I ask you a question, which I do at public meetings. Well, we have many issues in India. We have many problems in India. But still, it is the best place in this entire neighborhood. And I ask a question, will anybody like to go and settle in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Burma, Sri Lanka, or China? The answer is always India, India, India. So Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Your word of wisdom and then red flag, which you have mentioned, that is very, very important. 5 crore cases, the inefficiency in the bureaucracy and various other aspects. These are the things which stops us to move on. But anyway, India is, our DNA is that we are having 1,000 type of language, 1,000 type of food, even then we are one India. So I hope that with this direction, we will come out and we will be the winner. Thank you very much, sir. Now, Mr. Dhanendra Kumar, he is the person who has worked in World Bank. He is, no doubt, he is a IAS officer, but when you have worked in the World Bank, mean you are more than the economist also. So over to you, Dhanendra sir. Your view on this, how India should do and what are the things?
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
And visible. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing you and also Mr. Balbir Punj. In fact, my job has been made considerably easier after you have given a detailed overview of the budget. But I'll try to briefly, in the next few minutes, give some of my take on some of the issues in the budget. Well, first of all, I wanted to reverberate what Mr. Punj said, that it is not just a fiscal document, budget, but it's a strategic trajectory in the march towards India's long journey towards Viksit Bharat by 2047, when India hopefully will have a 30 trillion economy, and we are gradually and firmly and decisively marching towards it. And the main pillars for that are going to be Atmanirbharta, self-reliance, boosting manufacturing, infrastructure, and digital governance. The key pillars include strengthening MSME, semiconductor manufacturing, high-speed rail, while enhancing ease of doing business through tax reforms. Fortunately, the budget has come soon on the heels of Indo-EU trade deal and the Indo-US trade deal, which is likely to come in the next few days, but it's been announced. And this should open the big market in US and big market in EU to the Indian manufacturers. Incidentally, we are also negotiating with the Gulf Cooperation Council for the next FTA, and hopefully that should also open the entire Gulf region for our trade. Some of the key highlights in the budget, although it's been mentioned, but I'll very quickly go through. The Indian Semiconductor Mission, which is a focus on equipment, materials, and IP. Biopharma and Electronics, which is a 10,000 crore initiative over 5 years for biopharma, and 40,000 crore initiative on the electronics component manufacturing. Rare earth corridors in Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu to build supply chain resilience. We have the infrastructure connectivity, the high-speed rail corridors, development of 7 high-speed rail corridors, including Mumbai-Pune, Pune-Hyderabad, and Delhi-Varanasi. Urban infrastructure focus on municipal bonds. MSME and economic growth would be the next one. And then ease of doing business and taxation, as I just mentioned. Tax simplification is one, but minimum alternate tax, decriminalization, making life easier for the common man is another one in the taxation side. The key focus areas for 2047 include acceptance of 16th Finance Commission recommendations, which would include 41% devolution and 4.1 lakh crores to states, thrust on green energy, tourism, and sports development, recognition of service sector as a core growth driver, including the orange economy, budget emphasis on three Kartavya approach. This was coincidence that this was the first budget from the Kartavya Bhavan, the finance ministry's headquarters. So they have mentioned three Kartavya approach, which would include accelerating economic growth, fulfilling aspirations, and ensuring inclusive development, all geared towards Viksit Bharat. Then we have, Mr. Pavan Vijay mentioned 12.2 lakh crores with fiscal discipline, targeting a deficit of only 4.3% of GDP. There have been some questions which have been raised, fundamental questions in the webinar. The first one is, can India realistically become the third largest global economy? I would say firmly that yes, India will definitely become the third largest global economy. We are already fourth, and the way we are progressing, in the budget it was mentioned 7% growth. Some of the projections of the IMF and the World Bank says it would be 7.2, 7.5, definitely over 7% growth, the fastest growing economy, with nominal GDP growth positioning it to overtake Germany and Japan very soon. Then we have a budget which has three essential drivers: public investment-led growth, macroeconomic stability through fiscal consolidation, manufacturing and export competitiveness. The other items include productivity growth, which would outpace, hopefully, population growth. Formalization deepens across sectors, and capital efficiency improvement. Budget 2026 and Bharat 2047 roadmap. This includes the long-term architecture for the growth of Indian economy until 2047 on a very firm and calibrated trajectory. The key structural pillars include sustained capital expenditure as the anchor of growth, crowding in of private investment, institutional reforms, and human capital and skilling alignment. Another question which was raised often is, will this budget raise incomes and purchasing power? Yes, the answer is very firm and decisive yes. This budget is not overtly consumption heavy, but aims to raise incomes indirectly and sustainability. It talks of technology and ease of living. Infrastructure spending, which would create jobs upstream and downstream, manufacturing competitiveness which would increase wage earning capacity, and MSME support, which would strengthen economic and income stability rather than short-term relief. Instead of cash handouts, the budget chooses income creation over income support, and it would include the medium-term purchasing power, especially if inflation remains anchored. The fourth point which was raised was also manufacturing, MSME, and startups, whether these would be the engines of jobs and exports. Here it is the budget's most and very decisive strong statement when it says manufacturing, which would have continued thrust on PLI linked sectors, logistics cost rationalization, energy availability and reliability, MSMEs, easier access to credit, reduced compliance friction, and formalization incentives. This was one more very innovative mention that there would be a few MSMEs which would become big anchors for growth in India. Then startups would be focused on deep tech, fintech, climate tech, and manufacturing tech, integration with global value chain. The message is clear. India does not want to be only a service back office, but a manufacturing and innovation hub. This, coupled with social code and labor flexibility, skill matching, and speed of approvals, will help in our speedy march towards a Viksit Bharat. Jobs and exports will come not from one sector, but from their convergence. The fifth point which was raised was sectoral impact snapshot. In the real estate, infrastructure push support will bring up housing demand. Gift City, it would be strengthened as India's strong global financial gateway, and power energy would be a strong emphasis on renewables and grid capacity. This would also help in our data centers with the power and real estate growth. The data centers would be indirect but very powerful support through power availability, digital infrastructure, policy predictability, and it would position India as a digital infrastructure backbone. The last point which was raised was capital formation. Are we investing enough? Again, a very firm and decisive yes. Capital formation is the heartbeat of long-term growth. It maintains high public capex levels, signals confidence to private investors, improves long-term return viability. If we look at the other factors to see, can private capex meaningfully accelerate, and can financial markets channel long-term capital efficiently? The answer is very firm and clear yes. Budget creates the condition, and the momentum is likely to continue with all the measures which are being taken. I'll just mention for a minute or two the Indo-US and Indo-EU trade deals, which lay a very strategic context for the budget. It has come at the right time because these two powerful blocks would open India's goods and services for these big markets. So this would include improved market access for Indian manufacturing, supporting service exports, especially IT, fintech, and professional services, and enhanced technology and capital inflows. Crucially, the budget focus on manufacturing competitiveness, quality standards, and logistics efficiency will make India better positioned to actually exploit these trade opportunities in these big blocks that we have just mentioned. The last point which has been raised is, are we designing the right economic foundation for Bharat in 2047? Yes. The budget is not revolutionary, but it's a strategically evolutionary budget. As I said, a strategic trajectory for march towards the Viksit Bharat. It would have stability over spectacle, capacity over consumption, and long-term resilience over short-term applause. The budget recognizes that Bharat in 2047 will be built not by one dramatic leap, but by consistent, credible, and coordination economic policy making and the hard work by our people. It's essentially a youth centric budget as the finance.
Sir, you are mute, sir. Okay. I think there's some problem with the system. Thank you very much, Dhanendra sir. Uh, you have explained about the how the capital formation can take place and your experience relating to this. Your word of wisdom is always very, very useful for everyone because you validate things. So now come to our next speaker, because this particular budget is not only giving the dimension to the 2047, but some specific industry also. So now I'll request Mr. S.B. Goyal to explain about this, that how the real estate and township where you are heading, what will be the impact and overall economic aspects on other segment. So focus to your area will be highly useful so we can understand the view of the industry. Over to you, SP Gulji.
Thank you, Pawan. Very good afternoon, friends. Probably I am appearing second or third time on your platform. Let me begin by asking ourselves a fundamental question. Where do we want to be by 2047? And how do we achieve that destination? The vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 is not aspirational rhetoric. It requires clear economic strategy, structural reform, and sustained investment. In my assessment, the Union Budget 2006-07 is firmly aligned with the long-term objectives. Budget goes beyond incremental measures. It focuses on core drivers of economic transformation. In my assessment, the entire theory of the development by achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047 revolves around three main pillars. Pillar number one is manufacturing growth, urban centric growth second, and third is infrastructure, which is enabler. And I would like to deep down on these three aspects only rather than covering so many things, because budget has at least 1,000 pointers. You cannot deal with all of them. So let's deep dive only on three: manufacturing, urban centric growth, and the what are the enablers to these two. In fact, the first one is producing, second is consuming, and third is enabler. So let's focus only on these three. I string I If we study the path followed by the developed economies, United States, Europe, Japan, South Korea, China, and Singapore, Australia, one fact is common to all. At their peak growth rate, the manufacturing contributed 25 to 32% of their GDP. India today stands 16 to 17% contribution of GDP contribution of manufacturing in GDP. Recognizing this gap, Honorable Prime Minister has set a target to achieve 25%. The budget takes a strong and focused steps to move decisively in this direction. Strengthening MSME ecosystem by creating a fund of 10,000 crore rupees, including dedicated fund, easier access to credit, continued PLI support to create globally competitive manufacturing champions. Not only the incremental production, but here we want to create the champions from manufacturing, and Japan is a great example where the innovation and R&D takes place in the MSME industries only. Focus on Make in India, export orientation, and supply chain resilience. The another important part of this budget in terms of manufacturing is rejuvenation of 200 legacy industrial estates across states, transforming underutilized industrial areas into momentum manufacturing hubs and upgraded infrastructure, utilities, and logistic supports. Skilling and reskilling initiatives aligned with advanced manufacturing and future technologies. Rejuvenation of legacy industrial estates is particularly important. It allows India to unlock ideal industrial capacity, reduce the land acquisition pressures, and rapidly scale manufacturing activity close to existing urban areas. Now coming to the second most important part is the urban centric growth. Second pillar in urban centric economic growth, which is essential to accelerating the GDP expansion. Some key facts are worth mentioning. India's top 100 cities contribute nearly 60 to 65% of the GDP. Coincidentally, India has around 100 cities which are exceeding 5 lakh population. And at the same time, just 7 major cities contribute half of the total urban GDP, that is 30%, around 30%. This contributed by 7 top cities. This means that 90 plus cities with population exceeding 5 lakhs together contributes comparable to top 7 cities. The policy change therefore is clear. How do we unlock the growth potential of tier 2 and tier 3 cities so that economic momentum broadens and accelerates instead of just concentrating on few cities? Therefore, this budget has addressed this challenge through a urban challenge fund, which is a provision of 5,000 crore rupees per CER for 5 years. This fund is over and above the existing Amrit scheme and such other schemes where the urban infrastructure is supported. So this is a incremental outgo for this development. The key features of this fund includes the challenge-based selection mechanism, rewarding preparedness, reform orientation, and capacity building. Performance-linked building funding, where continuation depends on outcome delivered in the previous year. Independent audit, evaluation committees, ensuring transparent and accountability. This approach incentivizes cities to compete, intercity competition, reform and perform, rather than merely receive grants. The expected outcome is decongestion of top 7 metros, creation of new growth centers, and geographical dispersion of economic activity, which is very, very important. We have lots of hundreds of rural areas where there is no development, wealth and employment. And third pillar of this is multiplier engine, which is the critical for manufacturing led growth, is the support from the infrastructure, because both these manufacturing as well as urban centric approach requires a large infrastructure to be created. So in this direction, government has proposed a highest ever budget of nearly 12 lakh crore, which effectively is more than that. So in this, they are creating 7 high-speed economic corridors, dedicated rail corridors of freight and passenger efficiency, development of 20 inland waterways. In fact, to reduce the logistic cost, waterways is the cheapest way to transport goods actually. So this is very good development that now for last couple of years, the waterways development is a high priority for the government. Continued investment in highways, logistic parks, ports, airports, and urban transit systems. This scale of infrastructure investment is not an end in itself. It is designed to supplement and amplify the first two pillars. That's what I talked about, because manufacturing and urban centric development requires huge infrastructure spending. Manufacturing competitiveness improves with better logistics and lower transportation cost. Urban centers become more productive and livable. Supply chain becomes faster, cheaper, and more reliable. The impact of all these, what I discussed on real estate. Let's come to the core, what you asked me to spell power. An important byproduct of these three pillar strategy is impact on real estate development. Manufacturing expansion, job creation, urban growth, and infrastructure investment together will drive demand for industrial park, warehouses, and logistic real estate, boost housing demand in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, accelerate development of commercial and mixed use projects, create a virtuous cycle of employment, consumption, and urban expansion. In fact, real estate becomes a growth enabler, not merely a beneficiary. In conclusion, the budget clearly recognizes a fundamental economic truth. India cannot become a developed nation without a strong manufacturing base, vibrant cities, and world class infrastructure. By focusing on manufacturing revival, urban centric growth, and infrastructure led expansion, this budget lays down a credible roadmap for Viksit Bharat. The direction is right, the architecture is sound, the challenge now lies in execution, coordination with states, and institutional capacity building. So the days for real estate are good. It is said that the at least 5% delta, 6% delta is always achieved over a long term over GDP. So if you are expecting a GDP of 8 to 10%, if you take 5-6% delta, that means real estate is likely to give 15-16% returns over year on year. So happy investing and happy Viksit Bharat. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity once again.
Thank you very much, Goel Saab, for giving the insight of your real estate and other aspects of this. Thank you very much. Now, it's a turn to our star batsman, Mr. Lalit Dua. Everybody wants to listen to you. And I mentioned when Lalit was not there that he is the person who is creating wealth for investors and he is creating a capital for market and the industry. So in a way, and specifically the focus of government is MSME and Lalit is the right player for this. So over to Lalit Bhai, and we want to listen from your side that what is your take on, because capital market react fast than any other person and they understand fast about this. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Pawan, for your kind words. I feel humbled and overwhelmed by your extraordinary, generous words. Well, if you ask me specifically what this budget had to offer for capital markets, the answer is that it did not had anything specific to offer to capital markets. On the contrary, there was an increase in the STT hike, while I was personally expecting that there would be lowering of the STT both on the delivery and maybe status quo on the F&O. Well, while I understand the government's action anxiety that there are speculators and there are novice and naive traders which are losing money in the F&O, but at the end of the day, it is buyers bewares. So government cannot be educating each and everybody that they would be losing money. Tobacco is bad for health, so is liquor is bad for health, but we put a statutory warning that these are bad for health and the government keeps on collecting revenues. Similarly, the regulator has done an extremely nice job in educating the investors that 90 or 93% of the investors lose money. But the answer cannot be retrospective by increasing STT on the options as well as on the futures, because this will create not more liquidity, but this will create less liquidity and this will create high impact cost. High impact cost will impact investments from everybody, including the FIIs, which have been sellers for the last 5 years. Also, I was expecting reduction in the long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains. Now it is a combination of everything that has come from the government in terms of increasing the revenue and nothing for the capital markets. I'll give you an example. When the STT was introduced, it was introduced with the objective that the long-term capital gains would be free and a marginal tax in terms of STT will be introduced, because STT cannot be escaped. So while there were people who were escaping long-term capital gains, or there were people who were escaping taxes, so STT is to be charged in every trade. And it was calculated that the amount of STT that would be charged is equivalent to the amount of taxes that the people are paying. Now, over a period of years, the STT also has increased, and both the long term as well as the short term capital gains has also increased. So it is like killing the golden hen. So if you would see the data, India was a star darling country for the FIIs from 2000 or maybe 1991, particularly 1999 till 2020. And after 2020, they have been net sellers for the last 5 years. The answer is multifold, and the answer is not far to seek. What are the answers? One, there is increase in the long term capital gains. B, there is increase in the short term capital gains. C, there is increase in the STT. Now there are multiple FIIs where they are not taxed at all in their own origination of country. Since they are not taxed at all in their own origination of country, they cannot even take the benefit of double taxation treaty because they are not paying any taxes. To top it at all, though the government has no role in this, verdict like Tiger Global, which come with retrospective effect, whereby the seller is charged tax just because it came from Mauritius, though we have a treaty from Mauritius on the sale of Flipkart shares to Walmart. Now this makes the foreign investors nervous, and this makes the foreign investors jittery that what is the long-term consistency about the country in terms of the taxation policy. Now, there are two ways to increase the revenue. I am in full support of the government that the revenue should be increased. I am in full support of the government that there should be equal distribution of the income. I also believe that in the last 5 years, the distribution of wealth between the rich and poor, the gap that has widened. So the rich has become richer and the poor has become poorer. So as to increase the STT is not going to solve the problem. We have to increase the tax base, we have to increase the widen base, and we have to increase the size of the market. How we can do that? I had various, I would say, suggestions, but since the budget has gone, we can only deliberate and we can only formulate. Maybe the government can do it in the next budget. My first suggestion would be to eliminate the long-term capital gains completely or to reduce it sharply. Now, this would reduce the cost of capital and encourage long-term capital investing. And this would also encourage capital formation. Now, if you would see the earlier the savings that our forefathers and fathers used to do, the current Gen Z is not doing. So the kind of capital formation that the current Gen Z is doing is not that great. How do we do that? We can increase either the bank FD rates. Now that has proven to be retrospective and not to be correct because government is the biggest borrower and 24% of the budget goes towards the borrowing of the payment of the interest cost. And this is not only in India, this is world over. US has a fiscal deficit of $36 trillion. On an average, $12 billion the government has to pay interest to service the debt. So world over, there is a tendency to bring down the interest rates. So if the interest rates are brought down, then what is the TINA? What is the next option? The next option is to invest into into equities, to encourage the investors, to encourage the youngsters, and to encourage the capital formation through long-term capital investing. Now, how this is possible? These are possible through the various parameters. One, reduce the long-term capital gains completely. B, if it is not possible to reduce the long-term capital gains, maybe you can reduce it by 50%. Similarly, we have to reduce the STT for the delivery trades at least. As I have just said, for the sake of repetition, I understand the government's anxiety that there are a lot of youngsters and there are a lot of people who have got addicted to gambling, and this is leading to a mass problem. In fact, if you do a deep research, many of the NPAs, particularly of the microfinance or of the NBFCs, particularly the unsecured loans, the credit card loans, and the unsecured loans of the non-banking finance companies are attributed to the F&O losses which are done by the youngsters or the people who have got addicted towards the F&O trading. But time and again, the STT has been increased on the delivery trades on the disguise that the long-term capital gains would be free, but now we have both. My another suggestion is to make both buyback as well as dividend tax free. This is tantamounting to double taxation, which is not good. Let us assume there is a corporate which is paying complete corporate tax. After the payment of corporate taxes, whatever remains in the hands of the corporate, that tax has already been paid. Now this is distributable to the shareholder. But when the company pays the dividend, the shareholders have to pay dividend tax once again. So dividend is taxed as a complete business income. It is not even concessional income. Now look from the angle of promoter who are the largest shareholders. First, the company has paid a tax of 25.62%, and then the promoters who are in the highest tax slab, they have to pay another 30 to 40% tax depending upon what tax slab they are. So if you count both, the tax amounts to more than 60%. Now there is no incentive for the company so as to distribute the dividends. Now the other formula was to do buybacks, but even the buybacks have become taxable. At least in the current budget, one anomaly has been corrected, that the buybacks, which were earlier being treated as capital loss on one hand, so many of the small investors which had no capital loss, no capital gain, sorry, they were not participating in the buyback because the receipt, not only it was subject to 10% TDS because it was considered to be dividend, it was also to be adjusted against the capital gains. Now many promoters who were participating in the buybacks, they were having no capital gains. So how they can participate in the buybacks? Now considering a situation world over, all the companies which have surplus money, they are returning the money back to the shareholders, which legitimately and rightfully belongs to the shareholders, for which the company has already paid the corporate tax, which is taxable once again in the hands of shareholders or of the company, depending upon which year it was. So there have been multiple changes in the buybacks, and the government should have a consistent approach. While I'll take this forward, there are more things that I would like to suggest. Now, we can increase the market liquidity. How this is possible? We can adjust and we can allow longer dated stock index options. Now, right now, the options are only for 1 month, 2 month, and 3 month. Even there is no liquidity in the second and third month. So if we have longer dated stock and index options, this will allow the FIIs to hedge their positions. So this is one more suggestions that which if it is done, it will increase the depth of the market. Fourth is that the government should boost the retail investment and participation. How this can be done? There should be tax breaks for SIPs. Now, as I have told, in the last 5 years, the FIIs have been consistent sellers. So if the FIIs have been consistent sellers, then how the index has been maintained? Recently, on maybe 5th of January 2026, the index touched an all-time high. This is because there has been continuous inflow of SIPs in the average of 25,000 crore rupees per month. Now, these SIPs have come from the investors. There is a concept called 401k in US. Similar to 401k in US, we can bring tax exemptions for the SIPs. Now, these SIPs will act as a rock that in case the FIIs wish to sell, or if we are blackmailed by any superpower, that if we do not agree to their trade deals or if we do not agree to their terms, because most of the FIIs are coming from the developed countries and they are armed twisting us many a times that if you do not agree to our terms, then maybe many of their sovereign funds at least. I would not talk about each and every investor because every investor is a private investor, not necessarily answerable to the government. But in many cases, there are, I would say, sovereign funds. So the sovereign funds can act upon the instructions of the government. Now, how do we reduce those? We reduce those by ensuring that there is tax incentives. Also, the tax incentives for the ELSS can also be increased. This is one. Then we had an option of T+0 settlement. I think that can be fastened and that can be broad-based to more companies also. It was to be tried and tested on fewer companies with bigger market cap. But if we offer faster trade settlement options and incentivize brokers and institutions to adopt T+0 intraday settlements, then maybe it can incentivize some FIIs and some institutions to choose India as compared to other markets. But the most important fact is the taxation part, and there should be consistency in the taxation. And if there is consistency in taxation, particularly about the STT, particularly about the long-term capital gains, particularly about the short-term capital gains, particularly about the incentives for SIPs, particularly for increasing the ELSS, particularly towards, I would say, increasing the depth of the system, then the stock market will give you more taxes. If you would see the STT that is to be collected in 25-26, I think it will be equal to 24-25. Even though the government is expecting maybe a higher STT for 26-27, that remains to be seen whether the government will be able to collect more STT or not. Now the government is expecting 80,000 crore rupees from fiscal disinvestment. How it is possible? It is only possible when we have a vibrant stock market. If we have a vibrant stock market, the short-term pain of reducing the long-term capital gains, the short-term pain of reducing the short-term capital gains, the short-term pain of reducing the STT can be neutralized and can be set off by deriving more better prices when the government is doing their disincentive program. There are many banks, there are many public sector units whereby the government needs to bring down their shareholding to the minimum MPS of 75% and less, and the government can derive more value. So, retrospective taxes or increasing taxes have not resulted anything. During the Indira Gandhi government regime, the taxes went up to 75 to 95%. So the government realized that such high taxes did not resulted into more tax base. So the government overall reduced the taxes. But if you would see, the corporates are the taxed the most. Though the contribution of corporate is 18% as compared to 24% of the individuals, this comes more when you count the dividend and the buybacks. Because first the corporates are paying taxes and then the individuals are paying the taxes. So the dividends that have been received by the individuals, it is being counted as the taxes paid by the individuals, but actually it belongs to the corporates who have paid out as dividends or in the form of buybacks. So my humble request with folded hands to the government is to look at the double taxation policy, look at how the dividends results in double taxation so as to reduce the STT, at least on the delivery trades, reduce the long-term capital gains, reduce the short-term capital gains, and incentivize broker for adopting T+0 and ensuring structural and regulatory enhancements in terms of reducing the compliance cost, particularly for the SME and the small stocks, because this time the government has put a lot of emphasis that there would be a lot of SME and MSME champions. So as to bring those SME and MSME champions, we have to incentivize in terms of reducing not only compliance cost, be a bit lenient, because these SME promoters are not those promoters who are born industrialist. Between income and income tax, they first choose income. Between income tax and compliance, they choose sales. So because they are trying to grow, so they do not have that much staff that they have a CTO, CEO, CFO, and all those things. So these are my humble suggestions, and these are my humble folded hands to the government that please look into this matter. By reducing taxes, you will collect more taxes, because world over it has been proven that the taxes can only be collected voluntarily by increasing the tax base, by widening the tax base, and ensuring capital formation. Not only we can become the third largest power, we can become the first largest power before 2047 if we ensure capital formation. And capital formation, there are only two parameters. One is the fixed deposits, which I have told you that the whole world over has started towards reducing interest rates, or the second is towards capital formation by investing money into stock markets, which will go towards direct growth capital. When a company comes out with an IPO, it results into multiple things. There is employment generation, those companies buy land, those companies keep employment, those companies buy plant and machinery, which becomes the raw material for somebody. Then they produce goods, we export goods, we bring in valuable dollars. So this capital formation has to take place through more and more IPOs. So here I would like to summarize and thank Pawan for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Lalit Bhai. You have really touched the very, very important aspects, but we are late. So what I will suggest that when next year budget will come, we will prepare today that what will be the impact, and I will take guidance from you that how one IPO can bring money. For that money, you have to have a capital. From where the capital will come, either from the my own income which I have generated, that will come, or another aspects which I can create, that will come. So the suggestions are very, very interesting and very good, and we must see that what government is getting from STT, from capital gain tax. If it is not much and the market is expecting this, it can bring multiple things. Dividend people are not giving companies because there's a tax issue, so they are restricted. But if they can do this, it will be very, very useful.
One thing I would like to add, only 1 minute. There are so many companies which have excessive cash, and those excessive cash is lying with the companies because the promoters are the biggest shareholders and they will be taxed again. So the ROE, ROCE, ROIC, RONW of those companies are going down. If those dividend is distributed to the shareholders, those shareholders will reinvest that money back into the markets or into the IPO. One IPO creates multiple effect on the GDP. It creates multiple effect in terms of creating various parameters of GDP: employment, plant and machinery, purchase of land, creation of jobs, purchase of raw material, then finally sale of goods. Some of them could India, some of could be abroad. So capital formation has to be incentivized.
Perfectly all right. I think this is a very good suggestion. I will compile it and I'll share with you so you can modify, and then we will submit to the government before the next year budget is coming, or in between they can bring out with some logic. Thank you very much, Lalit Bhai, for your suggestion. Now, in this budget, the very interesting point has taken place. The government is changing the definition of government companies. Now they are saying the government company mean not 51%. If the 26% is there, even then this will be treated as government company. What will be the impact? It is a plan for the disinvestment, or the disinvestment which has lost its relevance. Will it revive on this? So all these answers Sundar will give. Over to you, Sundar, for this. And your comments, others.
Thank you, Pawanji. Good evening, everyone.
Good.
Thanks, Pawan, again, and corporate professionals for inviting me to this enlightening panel discussion about budget 26-27. So speakers before me have talked about this 2047 vision and the large capital expenditure required to get there. And Mr. Dua has rightly expressed his concerns around taxation, more taxes. So where will this kind of huge amount of money, I think one of the numbers given was around 12 lakh crore of capex needed. So one of the areas is our family silver, which is these PSU companies and the shares government owns in these companies. So this has been one of the go-to areas for finance ministers whenever they are short of the fiscal deficit targets, and it almost functions like a balancing factor. So disinvestment also is something one of my favorite budget topics personally, because the government manages to get all the money without taxing us middle class people directly or indirectly. So it is a kind of make everyone happy kind of an arrangement. The seller, the government is happy because it is getting to encash shares which they don't remember when they invested. The buyers are happy because they are getting a play in monopolistic businesses, and the taxpayer is happy because her burden is lessened to that extent. Hello.
Carry on, Sundar.
Yeah. So before we get into this year's numbers and what Pawanji also mentioned about the new idea which the government has come out with, it has been articulated in the economic survey. Let us see the long journey disinvestment has taken over the last 25. Someone was telling me this is the 25th year of disinvestment. When Arun Shourie under the first NDA government started this, they probably did not think that this process will go on for this long and yield so much of results for both the government and the larger economy. So over the years, government has also learned from its mistakes and improved a lot. Looking back, I remember one of the earliest stories I worked on was on the ONGC follow-on public offer, which came in 2004, the fag end of the Vajpayee government. And because it is government and there is this alone bidding, they had given the registry responsibility to one small player, and who had bid very low. And that led to a lot of complications, and the allotments to HNI was allotted to retail. Some of them didn't get shares, and the entire mess took like several years to unwind. The other problem that happened during that time was that the first UPA government came into power. It was supported by the left parties, who were fundamentally against this whole divestment process. So the next 5 years kind of went into a lull. Not much activity happened, and not much disinvestment. The treasure chest which Arun Shourie wanted to open could not be fully opened. There was this disruption in between. So only in 2009, when the second UPA government came with, I think Mamata Banerjee was supporting them. She was not very rigid on divestment. So then under Pranab Mukherjee, this whole concept of people's ownership of public sector shares started happening. Then these big issues like Coal India and other large companies were brought into the public markets. So that triggered a lot of interest. And I remember it used to be a huge affair, like whenever the new company comes to the IPO or the FPO, a lot of coverage, a lot of run-up also was very long. It used to take months from the announcement to eventual kind of listing and shares money going into the government coffers. But this also created a lot of disruptions, and the share price would tank for existing companies which are coming on FPOs. The share price would tank, market would get to know of it, and because the supply is coming, people used to speculate and run down the shares. There was a lot of loss of value. From 2012 onwards, this also was improved a lot, and with partnership with discussions with SEBI, this whole OFS process was brought in. And these days, you don't even know when the government is selling and when they're coming to the market. And they're doing it very efficiently. Thousands of crores are raised. So government has also become very nimble. In between, they tried these other methods such as ETFs, which was not that successful. But OFS has been one of biggest mechanisms, which is most favored mechanism for government divestment these days in existing companies. But because they have done it efficiently, and because they have managed to divest quietly, they have also now hit the headroom of that 51% mark in many of these companies. I'll come to the new idea in a bit. But while the Modi government has tried to change the name of the department from disinvestment and has started calling it investment and public asset management, DIPAM, they are also at the same time pushing for strategic disinvestments, like they did Air India recently by selling that to Tatas. And the other process, which is the IDBI Bank sale, which is also in the works. And recently there have been news reports that Kotak and Fairfax are in the race, and they have even submitted the financial bids. So the market cap of IDBI Bank is right now around 110,000 crores, and government stake is at 45%. So this one sale alone will get them 50,000 crores if it goes as per the market rate. And if they are getting a control premium from the buyer, then this value could even be higher. So that would probably take care of bulk of the next year's disinvestment target, assuming that the transaction would take a few weeks to fructify and be eventually closed. So this is one of the big ones which might be coming up. The second big idea which has come in the survey is what Pawan mentioned, which is about this changing of definition of government companies. Right now, government companies should have a minimum government shareholding of 51%. That is what the definition of Companies Act says. So now the economic survey has suggested that this definition can be brought down to the threshold can be brought down to 26%, and with 26%, these companies can be effectively controlled. So that increases the headroom considerably. So for companies where they're already close to 51%, for example, NTPC, IOC, Power Grid, HAL, and all these companies, government is already holding only 51%. So they cannot effectively sell much at this stage. But if it is reduced to 26%, they get a huge headroom. And we had done some analysis of the market caps and the headroom available in these companies. So we looked at three broad categories. Though there are around 400 central public sector enterprises and around 780 of them are listed. We limited it to some around 50 companies, 14 of them in 13 of them in Maharatna category, and another 12, 13 or 14 of them in the mini Ratnas, and then 12 public sector banks, around 13 and 40 companies. So what we found was that the maximum value could be got from Maharatnas, around 5 lakh crore of extra funds could be brought in for government if this additional 25% stake is unlocked. And similarly, in the public sector banks, most of them are already having a lot of headroom, because in some banks, government holds around 90% because they had to infuse a lot of capital during the NPA crisis. So their headroom is already there, and if this additional headroom also comes, government would be able to raise around 4 lakh crore there. And the smaller companies, basically mid caps of among PSUs, there the government can raise around 2.3 lakh crore. So in all, like what Pawan says, number of 12.2 lakh crore can be almost covered in these three categories. So the number we had arrived at is around 12.5 lakh crore. Obviously, all of it cannot be monetized immediately, but even if they do gradually, what we have seen in the past disinvestment is that once more investors come in, the governance improves, and the company becomes more efficient, then the valuation also goes up. So some experts have told us that even the residual 26% stake could eventually become more valuable than the entire government holding that is there today. But while we say that there is a huge potential for unlocking, there are a couple of concerns which come to mind when we talk about government companies. First of them is corporate governance. Though government has been progressively reducing stake, they continue to run these companies in a very old-fashioned way. They don't give much credence to regulations or much credence to corporate governance norms. They even the minimum requirement for independent directors, many of these companies don't comply with. Year after year, we see that they pay penalties to the SEBI or the exchanges, or they ask for waivers to the exchanges, saying that DPE has not appointed the director, it is not our fault, and all that. So if this kind of management continues, then the government cannot expect to maximize its value of shares which it holds or it wants to sell. Only if it keeps the other side of the bargain, which is improvement of governance, adhering to corporate governance principles, existing regulations, and not ask for some kind of carve out because we are government company, we are managed by the government, what is there to say? So they will have to play by the rules which is for all other listed companies. And that is one big concern going ahead. Independent watchers and investors would have. The second concern is we have monetized around 3 lakh crore from the public offers only. And even in the economic survey, it is suggested that whatever proceeds come, they have to be put into a national investment fund, and it has to be invested in sectors which have a future growth potential, employment generation, and larger public good. But in the last 25 years, I don't think we have seen such smart investments happening from the government sector. So one example is this huge semiconductor bandwagon, which is being talked about these days. Though we are talking about it a lot, is putting up a semiconductor fab is a long-term project. It will take, like, even if you start today, it will take billions of dollars of investments. On top of it, it'll be only fructifying only 10-15 years later. You'll be able to, by then the technology would have even gone further ahead. So even though we had a fab somewhere in Punjab, we did not invest wisely. We would have had so much of capital raised from these companies. So if we had invested wisely 10-15 years back, we could have we could have been sitting on a much better position on these new growth industries. So these are the couple of thoughts I would leave you with. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you very much. The giving detail of the disinvestment, because disinvestment is a part of the budget funding also. Though government is not giving much funfair, but by changing this one definition, it will take lot of strategical decision which will change the shape of government companies and the disinvestment. Thank you very much. Now, because Mr. Anil Khetan, he is the past president of PhD Chamber, and he's an industrialist and working in so many industry. Over to you, sir. Your view on this budget, how you see this, and how it will help you as a business in the country for long term.
Thank you, Pawanji, and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, I've prepared my talk on, are we designing the right economic foundation for Bharat at 2047? Friends, in just 21 years from now, Bharat will complete 100 years of independence. The question before us is not emotional. It is ideological. It is deeply practical. When Bharat turns 100, what kind of economy will we hand over to our children? Will it be confident or constrained? Will it be inclusive or divided? Will it be productive or merely populous? And most importantly, are we designing the right economic foundation today for Bharat at 2047? Now, friends, Bharat at 2047 is not a slogan. It is an economic mathematical problem. Let me begin with a reality check. If India wants to become a developed nation by 2047, three things must happen simultaneously. Number one, sustained high growth for 20 years, 2 decades at least. Mass employment creation and not just headline GDP numbers. Rising productivity per citizen, especially outside the metros. This is not optional. This is arithmetic. If growth slips, if jobs don't come, if productivity stagnates, no amount of nationalism or optimism can compensate. So the right question is our current economic design structurally capable of delivering this? Now, that brings me to my second question. What does the right economic foundation actually mean? A strong foundation for 2047 must rest on 5 non-negotiable pillars. First, the long-term growth, not short-term optics. Growth that compounds over decades, not just election cycles. Second, job with dignity, not informal survival work, but productive, skilled employment, like we have in Germany, Japan, etc. Third, broad-based inclusion, growth that reaches villages, women, youth, and small entrepreneurs. Fourth, global competitiveness. India must be a producer, not just a consumer, in the global value chain. And the last one, fifth, is macroeconomic stability, because no nation becomes developed by living permanently on fiscal stress. Now, let us examine the latest union budget announced on 1st February, because budgets to me reveal priorities better than speeches. What the latest budget gets right. Let me be very clear. This budget is not a populist budget. It is a structural budget. Infrastructure as the growth backbone. The government has continued its capex-led growth strategy. Why does this matter? Because infrastructure lowers our logistic cost, it raises our productivity, it crowds in private investment, creates jobs both directly and indirectly, roads, railways, ports, power, digital public infrastructure. This is the skeleton of a 25 to 30 trillion, $30 trillion economy. Without it, growth remains fragile and uneven. On this front, the direction is economically correct. Strategic manufacturing and technology focus. That's my point number 2. The budget clearly signals that India does not want to remain only a services economy and a low-value assembler. There is a sustained push towards electronics, semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and domestic value chains. This is very, very critical because no country in history has become developed without a strong manufacturing base. Today, China manufactures 33% of the world's output. How can you neglect China? And China became a strong manufacturing base because of the United States. Anyhow, the intentions to integrate India into global supply chains while reducing strategic dependence is absolutely aligned with Bharat at 2047. Fiscal discipline is not abandoned. This is important and oftenly ignored. Despite global uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, and social demands, the government has not lost sight of fiscal consolidation. Why does this matter? Because uncontrolled fiscal deficits destroy future growth, debt burdens the next generation, inflation punishes the poor the most. A disciplined fiscal glide path sends a strong signal. India wants growth without macroeconomic instability. That is mature economic thinking. But here is the uncomfortable truth. A good foundation on paper does not guarantee a strong building. There are 4 serious concerns we must confront honestly. Concern number 1, the employment gap. India's biggest risk is not inflation. It is not foreign exchange. It is employment. We are adding millions of young people to the workforce every year. Growth without jobs will lead to social stress, inequality, political pressure, and wasted demographic dividend, which we cannot afford the dividend to turn into a disaster. Infrastructure and manufacturing must translate into job-rich growth, not automation-heavy islands of excellence. We don't need them. I mean, we do need them, but we not laser focus on them. This remains the single biggest execution challenge. Concern number 2, MSMEs are still fragile in India, irrespective of whatever we say. Large projects get headlines, but Bharat runs on small and medium enterprises. If MSMEs are still struggling with credit access, which every year we talk of, compliance overload again every year we talk of, delayed payments a constant problem, technological transition, then growth will remain narrow, friends. For Bharat at 47, entrepreneurship must be easy. It must be scalable and respected, not feared. Concern number 3, human capital is the real bottleneck. Let me say this bluntly. You cannot build a developed economy with underskilled citizens, period. Education, skilling, health, and women's workforce participation are not social sectors. They are essential sectors. They are the economic infrastructure, I would rather say. If skill development does not match industry needs, if education does not build thinking and adaptability, then capital investment will always underperform. My concern number 4 is implementation risk, which one of my previous speakers did mention very correctly. India does not lack policies. India lacks consistent execution. Implementation is the biggest problem. Land, logistics, urban planning, judicial delays, regular complexity. These quietly erode productivity year after year. For Bharat at 2047, government efficiency will matter as much as the policy intent. Now, what must change between now and 2047? If we truly want the right foundation, I've identified 4 shifts which are essential. Shift 1, from scheme driven to system driven growth. You have less fragmentation, more institutional strength. Shift number 2, from quantity of growth to quality of growth, which the Prime Minister also mentioned yesterday in his Rajya Sabha speech. Productivity, innovation, exports are not just consumption. Shift number 3, from urban-centric to distributed growth. Tier 2, Tier 3 cities and rural enterprise must lead. Shift 4, from government-led to private sector energized growth. The state builds a runway, but enterprises must fly the plane. So, are we designing the right economic foundation for Bharat at 2047? My answer is nuanced. Yes, the direction is largely right. The intent is definitely serious. The macro framework at the moment looks sensible, but the outcome will depend on execution, on employment, and human capital. Budgets can allocate money, ladies and gentlemen, but only systems can create transformation. It is our responsibility, Bharat at 2047. Not a prediction, but even then, Bharat at 2047 is not guaranteed. It is earned year by year, reform by reform, decision by decision. The foundation we are laying today will decide whether our youth will become global leaders, going forward, or they will be frustrated job seekers. Whether India becomes a rule maker or remains a taker in the global economy, the choices are in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now. The future is watching. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Very well covered, sir. You have really spoken as a past president of PSD Chamber and covering every aspects of all industry, not focusing on one particular industry. And your point is very well taken, and it is really correct approach to do this, because all these things are a spinal process, and one link is broken, then it means you're not reaching to that part. Thank you very much, sir, for your comments and your points. I know you have your various meetings. Now, I'll go to the R.K. Agrawal ji. He is a chartered accountant, but I treat him as an economist more than chartered accountant. And I was asking him that this time in budget, the budget is very stabilized, not much tax, but he said so many tax issue. But his interest in this type of budget from his side of economic growth, how we can achieve 2047, and this is the foundation. So we will listen to him, his point of view. Over to you, Agarwalji.
Thank you, Pawan. Thank you very much. Anil Khitanji have chopped out very beautifully that for a developed economy, for a developed India in 2047, what is the roadmap and how this budget is addressing these issues. One thing which I have noticed in this year's budget, that during last 2 decades, I can say that this is one of the budget where there is clear focus, clear direction of the government what to do. They are not confused. Even earlier, particularly if I see from the point of view of the income tax proposals, we have always seen that they give the provisions, they make the amendments half-heartedly, they give something from one hand and take away from the other hand. But this year, we have noticed, not only on the income tax, but in other economic policies also, there is continuity, there is stability, there is ease of doing business, which has been provided in many places. In the Income Tax Act, we will see that for reducing the litigation, they have provided very definite provisions for the prosecution to be almost eliminated. They have reduced it from rigorous imprisonment to simple imprisonment, that too up to maximum 3 years, which means it becomes a bailable offense. Then the fear of prosecution is almost done away with. I mean, the kind of policies which have been laid down in this year's budget are speaking of the roadmap of next 21 years. But now, when we address the specific issues of this program, which have been given in the posers, that whether India can become the third largest global economy, this is a number game. There is no doubt that India is going to be third largest economy within next 2 years. The kind of growth of around real growth of around 7% with nominal growth of around 11%, we are going to be the third largest economy within next 2 years, and we will touch $5 trillion economy within this time frame. So that is not in doubt at all. But when we talk of the Viksit Bharat in 2047, what does it mean? What we mean by Viksit Bharat? Because the definition of the developed nation itself, we will have to first of all define. Only then we can say whether we have achieved it or we have not achieved it. If we compare with the present economies of either US or Europe, we will see that per capita they are 30 times, approximately 30 times, more than 30 times higher GDP than ours. So do we mean that we want to raise our per capita GDP or per capita consumption to that extent? It is not possible. It is not possible. But if we are having a target of $30 trillion, that means if our economy would be around $30 trillion in 2047, then maybe that our per capita income may be $15,000 per capita, keeping in view the population increase which will happen in 2047. That means that we will move around 5 times higher. If, as Balbir Punji told, that presently we are around $3,000 and we will become $15,000 per capita income, then we will be 5 times higher. So whether we can say that 5 times higher economy is the yardstick that we can say we have become a developed nation, because there was a lot of discussion on this point only, that whether this parameter is good enough to define that we are a developed nation. And apart from this, whether the disparity can be bridged, because it is not only the GDP numbers, it is the disparity, inclusive growth, which every speaker has spoken. That is also a very important aspect which we have to keep into mind. So maybe that if keeping in view what target we are having, but if we are having a target of say $30 trillion of economy, that means that we have to grow by around 12%, 11 to 12% nominal growth, real growth around 7 to 8% every year. Now for this kind of growth consistently for 21 years, as Ketanji has said, that we have to see that whether our all the basics are intact. Are we moving in the right direction? So what is required for that? Number one, fiscal consolidation. India is doing very good so far as this part is concerned. Trade deficit, fiscal deficit containing at 4.4% in 25-26, then target of 4.3%, and then every year bringing it down up to 0.1% every year, reducing, bringing it down to 4% in 29-30. I mean, that is a very reasonable and very good target, which we are achieving year to year. And second, very important aspect, that our debt to GDP ratio is also very healthy. This year, we have seen it is 55%. And our target is within the next 5 years, we will bring it down to 50%. When we talk of the developed economy of the US economy, their debt to GDP ratio is 120%. And that's why they are in so much of crisis. But our debt to GDP ratio is quite reasonable. So physical consolidation part is we are taking care of very, in a very balanced manner. Second important thing which government has to look after is the infrastructure development. There is a lot of focus of the government. Capex has been tremendously increased, keeping in view the constraints or the size of the budget by the government. They are putting a lot of investment in the infra development, and now there is shift of the infrastructure. The pace of the the shift which is there. Now the infrastructure is not sadak pani bijli. Now the infrastructure is AI, 6G, data centers, chips, semiconductors. Focus of government is clearly on technology driven infrastructure, digital infrastructure, which is going to be the future of the next growth engine. So therefore the direction is okay, direction is right. Then second most important thing which I feel, that if we want to grow consistently with this pace, is to bridge the trust deficit. Ease of doing business friendly environment to provide. That is the crux. How, if we want that there should be capital formation, the only thing is that private investment driven economy should be there. Private investment should be encouraged. How it can come? It is not, it can come only when there is a trust between the businessman and the government. And it can come only when there is ease of doing the business. There is decriminalization. There are less compliance burden. There are business-friendly policies. If these kind of things are put in place, then private investment will certainly come. People will come forward, make the investment. And this is what there are indications, there are signs in this year's budget. One very important thing which one may notice in this year's budget, today only, that there is a circular by SEBI, by RBI, which has been issued. And they have said that the NBFCs up to asset size up to 1,000 crore now will not be required to be registered with the RBI. This single amendment, single change, that now for the group companies to make an investment vehicle, when you are not having any public deposits, there were a requirement of registration with the RBI. What is the logic? What was the logic? It was not required. But now they are doing it removed. Up to 1,000 crore, you can now lot of investment vehicles where you are having your own funds, or there are no public funds are involved, or only capital funds through the capital are there, then this can provide lot of capital formation. Under the Income Tax Act, so many schemes have been provided this year for the purpose of, there is a continuous perpetual VDIS which has been provided by reducing the rate of tax on the undisclosed, on the income, source of which cannot be explained. The incomes which are in the nature of the deemed incomes. There the rate of tax was earlier 75% plus cess, 78%. Now it has been brought down to the maximum marginal rate, which is around 39%. So that will also pave way for the capital formation. So government is taking so many steps for the purpose of the capital formation. So the government, for doing ease of doing business, this year's budget is giving clear indications that with the long-term thinking, they are making the provisions so that the business-friendly environment can be created and trust can be restored with the businessman so that they can make investment in the country or in the businesses. Global integration, of course, we all are looking that the kind of steps which the government is taking. The market will be open for India and overseas mutually. It will be beneficial to both the countries, and when there will be higher economic activity by opening the market both ways for imports as well as for exports, then naturally we are going to have a good ecosystem. Manufacturing parks, manufacturing hubs to be created. Again, government is doing a little bit. They have said some, textile park or some SEZs also to be installed, to be established. But I think that whatever is being done is in right direction with the right focus, but speed which is required or the pace which is required maybe little higher, maybe little more. Particularly, if I will say that manufacturing hubs which are required to be created to get the economies of scale, those kind of which are there in China or US, it is still there is no planning or there is no visible, manufacturing hubs, manufacturing parks in our country which are product specific. So if we can create those kind of policies, maybe that our pace may be better. Then investment in technology and R&D, which is required for the purpose of the development which is going to be there in future due to AI. That is also lacking to some extent. The kind of pace or the kind of huge amount which is required. That is also one thing which may be needed. But at the same time, I will say that this government in our country is working under immense pressure, under a lot of constraints which are existing and which probably government even willingly the government cannot get rid of them. Democracy itself is a constraint, is a hurdle for us. Bureaucratic hurdles, 5 flags which have been just addressed, judicial reforms, land acquisition problems, lot of vested interest mafias which are pulling back the government within the country, outside the country. These are certain red flags which are existing. Within these constraints, whatever the government is trying to perform, this year's budget is giving a clear indication and focus that we are on the right path. Maybe that pace may be a little slow, but we are in right direction and we are going to be developed by 2047. And if not 2047, then maybe another 10 years. But our economy is in the very much in the right direction. Thank you, Pawan.
Thank you very much, R.K. Agarwalji. It is not like a chartered accountant speaking on tax. He is an economist speaking on tax who has a knowledge of numbers also. You have rightly pointed out, and the information which you have shared, it's really very useful. And the good news which you have given about the NBFC 1000 crore in-house group company, that's a very good move, and it will definitely change the compliance burden and development also, because so many people were not using their own company, they were using outside, and now it will change. No doubt we have to focus on everything faster and faster. and that will move. I just want to, before Mr. Madan could conclude this entire session, I just want to, in my opinion, I'm finding the government has so many plans, but the usability or the user, they are not aware of what are available. This gap government has to fill. This is my view, which we will discuss on some other time. Now over to Madan for your concluding remark and your point.
Thank you, Pawan. First of all, I compliment you. I mean, this is a unique budget program, I tell you, where each and every aspect of the budget, as each and every aspect of the economy and our country and the future of our economy has been covered today. I don't have words to how to conclude. You know, every speaker was par excellence, wonderfully exposed, wonderfully discussed and deliberated the budget. From capital market point of view, I really like the views of Mr. Lalit Dua. I don't know how his views will reach the Honorable Finance Minister. Though as per his talk, he has lost all the hopes unless before the next budget. But I'm of the view, if when we from the corporate professionals or from the various chambers of commerce or from the broking houses or from the stock exchanges, if we approach the FM again, and if whatever has been done, if that can be undone. The reason is very simple, that for last couple of years, we have been seeing that there is an outflow by the financial institutions, for foreign financial institutions. It was expected that after European Union trade deal, they will stop selling. It was expected after the budget, they'll stop selling. It was expected that after this Indo-US deal, they'll stop selling. For one day, they stop. But then again, they start selling. And once they start selling, they're not even short. Whatever the shorts are there in the market from their side, those are also not being covered. So something to attract them, rather to make them neutral for the timing, not to attract invest more, but not to take out the money. Something needs to be done in the capital market aggressively. And our finance minister must understand this very well. I think this needs to be represented. Then what Mr. Sundaresh said with respect to government companies, I am fully with him. You know, the government companies, the DP guidelines are really being followed in letter and spirit. But I'll say not in letter, but not in spirit. Because during last couple of years, I tell you, I must have visited around 40 PSUs to have an interaction with their boards. Not even a single PSU is there, Pawanji, where the board is properly constituted. In every PSU, the power is with the President of India. Independent directors are not there, women directors are not there, boards are not properly constituted, the committees are not there. So if we have such scenario, how can these companies can have good corporate governance, which Mr. Sundaresh said very rightly. Then Pawanji, with respect to R.K. Agarwal, ji said very rightly decriminalization. I think first time I'm seeing the decriminalization in letter and spirit. Earlier, whatever the redundant sessions were being decriminalized, but this time, the active sessions where the real penal provisions were there, they are being decriminalized in the income tax sector. This is very, very laudable. Coming to your opening remarks with respect to Amrit Kal 2047, and which was really followed by Dhanendra Kumar ji and then Balbir Punji and then Dhanendra Kumar ji. I really like their comments. One with respect to this that judiciary dispute resolution. Pawanji, in the economic survey also, the finance minister has said that something needs to be done to strengthen the tribunals. But on the ground, nothing is being done. But in the budget, we have seen that some budget has been allocated to provide infrastructure to the tribunals. I hope that infrastructure is provided at the earliest, because I'm the IBC lawyer. I see that in NCLT, full strength is not there. Even during the 3 months, 4 members are retiring. The president of NCLT is retiring in the next 5-6 days. There's no alternate arrangement as on date. Pendency is increasing day by day. Something needs to be drastically, not simply to be written, but needs to be done drastically. Dhanendra Kumar ji talked about corruption. I tell you, the way the economy is getting digitized, I'm pretty sure that with this digitization, the corruption will not come to an end, but it will get reduced drastically. Now, what in our country is required? Budget has given us the direction. What we really require is, we require implementation of the laws, the implementation of the budget proposals. We all must have fear of laws, and we must all respect our laws. And then certainly there's no country better than our own country, India. Thank you very much, Mohanji.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madan, for concluding the humongous task of concluding within 5 minutes. Thank you very much. So, friends, it is time to end this session. I thank everyone who has participated, who has given his point, and everybody has spoken because we wanted to have a different type of program that how what is the basic purpose are we going this budget is different or this budget can achieve whatever is planned. That was the basic point. Market has gone down that day because I'm always seeing if you are not getting something related to capital market or some negative news is coming, market reacts and rest of the things they forget. But after 1 day or 2 day, they realize, oh, we have not seen this, and then they start doing this. So with this, thank you everyone. Thank you Sundar, thank you R.K. Agarwalji, thank you Madan, thank you Pulsar in absence, Mr. Khetan, Lalit Dua, Dharendra Kumarji, S.B. Goyal. Everybody has given his own point of view. We will compile these points and proactively we will try to send to the government because only concern is that the amount which they are receiving from STT is 55,000 crore. So whether they can reduce this and they can surrender this, that's a question. And I think they have not charged STT or not increased STT. They have tried to restrict the speculation where the SEBI side itself says that 90% option and future market investors are losing money. So I think that is the main focus and main part. That's why government want to put this restriction. With this, we closing this session, and as usual, the our knowledge journey will continue, and we will meet you next Friday, same time at 4 o'clock on a different topics. Till then, thank you.